Hello and welcome to today's video where I'm going to be talking about the new Nearly Natural palette from Glaminatrix Cosmetics. I did receive this in PR and I'm going to be creating 3 looks for you and showing you some swatches. I think this is a really nicely balanced neutral palette because it's not just like all warm tones, all cool tones. There's a nice variety. If anything, maybe this is more like a condensed version of the Dollhouse palette from Blend Bunny Cosmetics because we have some taupey, reddish, burgundy tones, an olive tone, cool toned, and other warm toned, and some really beautifully just almost texturized kind of shimmers. When I mean texturized, I mean they really just pack a punch. They're just a little bit different. They definitely feel like some of them are a little bit different kind of almost mica or something that's pressed in the pan compared to shimmers that I've experienced from Glaminatrix before. Especially the shade Nearly Natural is just super extra sparkly. It's like almost like it has glitter in it, but definitely there's no glitter in any of these. They're just really beautiful and shiny. So let's get right into the 3 looks, and then at the end of the video, I'll give you some of my thoughts. Going into Down to Earth, right in the crease. Oh, that is a lot darker for some reason than I thought it was going to be. I'm not sure why. I mean, it looks pretty dark in the pan, but I'm taking some lighter tone setting powder just to help blend that out a little bit, but I'm just gonna have to work it a little bit up into my crease. I'll be doing a halo eye. I do feel like, especially with neutral shadows, I do kind of just resort to like specific eyeshadow type of eyeshadow looks. So like a halo eye, kind of like a half cut crease, or just something simple with like a mid-tone shade in the crease and then a darker outer corner. Going into Disrobe, and that's just gonna go on the inner and outer corner. Just first kind of laying it down, and then I'm going to be working it up. Might have taken that up a bit too much, especially in here. And then this outer corner, blending it up and out. And I'm gonna use, again, like a lighter setting powder. This is just a ColourPop powder I've been trying to finish using up that I've had for a while. I'm just gonna use that to blend out the edges, and then in here as well. And then I'm gonna go in with a Pixie Epoxy right in the center of my lid, and I'm gonna just tap on it. Just tap it out so there's not too much on. And I think I'm gonna use Exposed. Ooh, that looks so pretty. I'm just gonna go in with my pinky. Just kind of tap it on. Look at that. That is so beautiful. So beautiful. Going back in. I'm just gonna bring it up into my crease, no problem. Oh, it would end up there anyway, so I'm just gonna smudging it around. It can be a little bit messy. Totally fine. There we go. I think that's pretty nice. Taking Disrobe to finish off the lower lash line. And then Down to Earth underneath that. And then a little bit of Disrobe again in here. Just to like really grungify. Here's the first finished look. I put on the Visionary lashes from Unearthly Cosmetics. Going into Untouched, I'm gonna put that right into my crease. There isn't really like a lighter shade I can blend this out with, so I do kind of wish there was a lighter shade. I know that not every, like, people have already like a neutral light tone shadow for the most part in some sort of form, and of course you can also use your setting powder, but it is just nice to not have to reach for something if you are buying a palette for the color story, especially like a neutral palette. But I do feel like for the most part I'm pretty sick of shadows like that being always shoved into palettes. And I'm gonna use Naturally. This looks like it's gonna be super pigmented, and put it on the outer corner. I love the tone of this. There's so many amazing tones in this palette. I really feel like it covers a lot of different neutral tones that you could possibly want. So I'm gonna go in and blend Untouched into this just a tiny bit, just to help feather out the edges of that. There we go. Just kind of going in a triangle, going back in a little bit more. And I'm gonna go in with the Fairnight Pixie Epoxy. I'm gonna do kind of like a half crease situation with it. Picked up Unveiled, and I'm gonna put that right up against the crease kind of line. I feel like this is not really translating as sparkly as it looks in the pan. And then below that, I think I'm gonna go in with Raw. Oh, that's so smooth and metallic and beautiful. These feel a bit different from their usual formula, so I'm just gonna go in with my pinky. They almost feel like slightly gritty. Naturally underneath the lower lash line, blending it outwards. And then I'm gonna take Untouched just a little bit. Just kind of fade it. Here's a second finished look I put on the Visionary lashes from Unearthly Cosmetics. Going in with Simplicity, and I'm just going to put that into the crease. I'm not going to take it all the way down here, just going to be keeping it in the crease. I'm going to be doing an eyeshadow wing. Just really building it up in there and blending it. It's blending super nicely. Taking the Game Beauty EO5 brush, and I'm going to be using it to draw a wing with the shade Disrobe. And I'm just going to make sure basically it kind of goes up into my hood. And I'm just going to be feathering it out. Well, winging it out rather. And then taking it here up into my crease a little bit. Well, not crease, but a little bit into the crease here, but just kind of like really merging it together and then extending it underneath my lower lash line. And then just taking a little bit of Simplicity right up against the edge. But I'm not going to take it all the way in here. Putting down NYX Glitter Primer. And I'm taking Stripped Back, and I'm going to cover my face because I had quite a bit of fallout on the other side from the other shade I'm about to use. My voice is probably a little muffled, but just putting that. This is such a beautiful shade. I feel like it does end up looking a bit more silver on the lid. And then going in with Naked Eye, which this is the one that was really kind of flaking all over my face, and putting that like right above it. And that definitely helped prevent any really fallout. Put on the Unearthly Visionary lashes, and here's the third look. So for reference, here is the Dollhouse palette next to the Nearly Natural palette. You can definitely see some kind of crossover tones, if you will, just not as many levels of depth in here. And obviously the shimmers are pretty different. I don't think that the shimmers are in any shape or form the same formula. The mattes blended really nicely. They performed really beautifully. Actually, I really had no issues blending these together. Of course, I have to try this palette out just a bit more to really get my thoughts, but I did use pretty much almost all the shades. I think the only two mattes I didn't use is Nothing to See and Barely There, and then a couple of the shimmers. The shimmers are definitely the star of the show in here. If you're looking for a neutral palette that really has some shimmers that really pack a punch and just are definitely more interesting, almost dimensional, then I think you would really enjoy this palette. I think there's a little bit of a variety of textures in here. So Nearly Natural being almost like very slightly gritty, and it has the most sparkle. I definitely would recommend using some sort of a tacky primer with all of these, and also applying your eyeshadow before you do your full face, because even with a tacky primer you're probably going to get fallout from the brush because some of these are really just finely milled shimmers. And then Unveiled is also pretty sparkly, and then the other shades are a little bit more just like a really beautiful, smooth, super shiny metallic, but they're not necessarily like really sparkly like Nearly Natural. And then Stripped Back, it actually looks a bit different when I swatched it. It looks like a plummy almost kind of silver. It's really translating like super silver on camera, but once I put it on the lid, I really just lost that plummy base to it, which is a shame because I really feel like this is such a unique kind of tone of a shimmer that is like a silver. Shipping from Australia to the US is pretty expensive, so you can opt for the Dollhouse palette from Blend Bunny if you are interested in a similar color story, keeping in mind that the shimmer formula is different, but that is an option if you do not want to pay $20 for shipping. Of course, if you're Europe based or Australia based, that this is really a great neutral stable palette to have that will give you a variety of neutral everyday kinds of looks. So those are all my thoughts on the palette. Let me know in the comments below if you picked it up or not. And I have lots of eyeshadow tutorials with different indie makeup palettes and single eyeshadows if you're interested. So I hope to see you next time.